2D games were a genre that I really wanted to make again. When I was a kid, I used to be able to make games in like 6 weeks in the evenings. I'd have school in the day. I was at high school or whatever, and then I come home and I had a ZX Spectrum, and I program that and I do all the art and I think up all the ideas and I try out all the, make prototypes basically, and it wouldn't actually look that bad. Not really bad. I used one of them to get my first job at Argonaut Software. Torrican wasn't out at the time, but it was a very Torrican style game.
That's cool.
And Jez Tan, the boss of Argonaut, said, "Oh, well, let's get you in and start you learning 3D." And from there on, I made 3D games.
You got into that pretty early then.
Very early on, yeah. And I went on from there to make a game called X. It was called Lunar Chase. It was going to be called Lunar Chase in America, but it never came out. It was a Game Boy 3D game.
Not many 3D Game Boy games, are there?
No, I think it was I think it's probably maybe the only one still. I don't know.
Wow.
When I was learning programming and stuff, I had this dream to make 2D games.
Yeah, right.
And it never got realised.
Wow.
Because I kind of jumped the generation. I went straight into 3D. And,
that's a damn shame. Well, I'm glad you're back.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. We got our first full HD TV and plugged in the PS3, and we were looking at photos on it and things like that. And I said, well, let's get some screenshots from old 80s games, like from the ZX Spectrum or the Commodore 64.
Right.
And let's just tile them.
See how many you can fit.
And see how many we can fit on the screen. And we piled all these screens, and we got like 17 screens worth up, and it just looked amazing. And all the pixels were clear, and the colours were amazing. We never had the colours like that back in the 80s.
Oh, right.
The difference was astounding. And I thought, well, everybody's going to be doing 3D. But even with 3D, you've got textures and stuff, and they're kind of still low res within, and you get like sharp edges, and you get some very high detail sometimes within the 3D. But what if we just went 2D and made 2D stuff more interesting again? The Virtual Console stuff is great, but it's still SD. I've made those when I was a kid.
We played those games.
And you played them, yeah, exactly. Yeah. I wanted to really do something new as well as do something 2D, and it was just like the perfect match.
Part of your goal was to make a tower defense game with monsters that would also appeal to a Japanese audience who had traditionally not been into RTS games at all. How did you go about doing that?
The really important thing was to actually give it a character. Actually have a little character running around that you control. I love Command & Conquer series. I played every single one from the first, and I was hooked for 3 or 4 years to 0 Hour, the mod for Command & Conquer Generals.
Okay.
And I even modded it myself to fix some of there's a few little inflation bugs in there, and I actually modded it myself, and we were playing it in the company. The Japanese bit in the office really loved it because of this fact the little guys running around doing it. And it totally changes the immersion. The reason we stopped playing was because we started making monsters. And we started playing monsters instead.
Exactly.
When you pick up the game, you can instantly play it. You have to go up to a tree and you see the tree highlight, and then you think, oh well, that must mean something happened, so you try to push a button and the menu comes up. It's very, very intuitive, and I think that is probably the most important thing to do when trying to appeal to a Japanese gamer, is make the game as intuitive as possible. These people have grown up on Nintendo games primarily, and they're just they're used to having everything fed very in a friendly way to them. Bringing in the coins, and not just having the coins automatically add up, having to collect the coins and make sure if you hit an enemy, the coins scatter out and stuff like that.
Yeah, like a little Sonic the Hedgehog nod or something.
Exactly, I really love that dynamic in Sonic, actually. It's one of my favourite parts of Sonic. In general, it's a very, very easy to play game. The only reason you really die is because if you let the enemies through, the monsters through. It works quite well.
Yeah, definitely trial and error, but the best kind of trial and error game.
It's a good feeling.
The good kind.
We made the levels about 20 minutes, and we tried lots of different times, lots of different lengths of levels, and like 30 minutes, 15 minutes, and we found that the perfect time was 20 minutes.
It makes time fly because it doesn't feel like 20 minutes when you're playing it.
Because you restarted.
Yeah, well, there's that.
But I think Monsters has a continuous learning curve.
Yeah,
so once you get to the hard stages, you think, oh, this is really hard, and then you work out how to beat them, and then you come back and you play like the bridge level again, and you realise you don't have to place everything quite exactly as you thought.
Right. And one of our roommates, we were watching him play, and it was frustrating because he kept dying because he kept doing the exact same build over and over again. And after a while, I was like, Carlos, you can't put the same towers in the same spots. It didn't work before.
You get stuck in like a rut.
Yeah.
So that's trial and error.
Yeah.
The response on Monsters has been great, and people have been saying they want more. So I think take that into consideration.
Just announce a expansion pack or something like that? I don't know if it got formally announced.
It's not officially announced, but we're working on an expansion pack. Yeah.
That's awesome because I really didn't think that these games would be set up for something like that.
Yeah,
I guess that's
the reason for the expansion pack is because my wife is addicted to the game, and she's got to the end. She's got all the rainbows, and she's in the top 20 in most of the levels. She's not a gamer, and she's now. I suppose.
At this point,
and she's bugging me now every day. When is the expansion pack coming out? And I said, okay, wait. So we're gonna get here. She's gonna come in and do the testing for the expansion pack.
One little feature that I like in Monsters is the fact that you can use it with remote play. My girlfriend goes to sleep earlier than I do, and I still want to play with my Monsters sometimes. So I can lie in bed, and even though my TV's right over there, sometimes having it right here is what I want. So do you guys have any more plans in the future about other ways to use remote play, or other ways to use the PSP, or are you interested in the PSP at all?
We're definitely going to look into something for PixelJunk Dungeons. There's actually a lot of interesting stuff we're going to do for Dungeons, but I can't say anything about it.
That's awesome.
We should just be calling it number 4.
That's true. Yeah.
Number 4. Yeah.
The name could change. You see.
There you go.
Go, go, go!
What about in Racers? I think when it initially came out, it was listed as a racing game on the store, and then,
yes,
and it's not really a racing
and
game. It's more of a
I got
puzzle
to change
game.
that. I was sending mails to them saying, why is it in the racing section?
Why is it in the racing?
The icon makes it looks like Ridge Racer. The icon looked the same, and it was right next to it. And I was like, people are going to buy it, and they're not going to get. It's the wrong impression.
Right. A lot of people are like, what is this? It's not. It just wasn't what they were expecting.
No.
And then that's and that knocked the game.
It's a shame. Yeah.
But don't you think in the context of the series as a whole, later people will be able to come back to Racers and check it out again for the first time? Saying these guys made these other games and I really like them. Maybe this first one is actually really cool.
Right.
That's what happened to me. I played Monsters first and then was like, oh, I gotta go play Racers.
Right.
So I went back and got it, and then I was like, oh
then you understand where we're coming from.
Right.
I think part of it is also the experience. I mean, Racers is a great, fun multiplayer game. We had 7 people in the office just cranking on Speed Monkey or whatever. And,
Speed Monkey.
Fireball Frenzy. My personal favorite is Flame Burst. But it's a different kind of experience. And maybe I think as Dylan and his team get more of the PixelJunk games out there, you're absolutely right. We'll get people coming back to visit some of the other games.
My favorite mode is Sudden Death.
Yeah.
I just love the extreme, the fact that you can't touch any other car on the track.
Yeah, it's all about trigger control at that point.
Always. And trying to get in the online ranking in that.
Oh yeah.
It is like that has a similar addictiveness to Monsters actually. That one mode is just like you must get the perfect route, and it's amazing and you find these little holes in the traffic that you can get through. And if you get through that hole in the traffic, at that point you get a high score, And
was it ridiculous once you released the game how the scores changed, or are you guys still the best players?
No, we're not. No.
Well, I had a good high score in Bloomburst for a while.
Oh, really?
Racers,
because you put a lot of practice in on that one.
Go, go, go! Bronze! Congratulations!
We've just seen the new trailer for PixelJunk Eden. Looking at it, what I thought was Bionic Commando meets the Morphball mode from Metroid, and like a little bit of. Well, then we also heard some Peggle, you know, because of the way you build combos and stuff. It's the first game that you guys are putting out under this series that has scrolling in it. I kind of thought that one of the things you might do is stick to these kind of static screen games.
Initially, we were going to do that.
Yeah.
And the reason for doing that is because. You know, LCD TVs, you know, when they scroll, they kind of blur a lot.
Right, exactly.
When we were making Eden, it just felt, you know, I felt the need that we needed at least vertical scrolling in there, and then the horizontal scrolling went in as well. And because of the color set we're using, the color palette we're using, you don't get the blurring as bad as I thought you would. And so we're fine with that. I mean, we're fine with exploring all kinds of, you know, scrolling as well, as long as we don't show up the bad side of LCD TVs.
Right. You're very adept at switching art styles between titles. What I'm wondering is there still an underlying core, you know, of the art direction that you're trying to maintain through all the PixelJunk games?
The point of PixelJunk isn't to create like a unified sort of style. I mean, the games have a unified feel, sort of, you know, because they're made by the same people, but we want to experiment with different looks and different styles. Anything that comes into our mind, you know. We find some cool effect, we just want to use it.
I've liked the 2 games that have really been released so far so much, and that I like the look of the third one. Like, I'm kind of already sold on it. I played your other games, I can get it, right? I kind of want to subscribe to PixelJunk now, and like not have to worry about like just having them come into my system, feed them in as soon as they're done. I'll take them.
Like a pre-purchase type thing.
Something like that, or you know, I get it for $1 less every time if I commit to buying all of them or something like that. I don't know how it would work. Tiny games are fun now. I mean, that's the thing that everyone's learned over this past year is that we forgot that like a one gameplay mechanic done well can be
done well.
That's all you need, right? So you have many games in the works. Like, how many are you working on all at once?
At the moment, we're only working on like two games. Like, well, the Dungeons game I mentioned. It's kind of a very early prototype. And we're just fleshing out ideas. And
one of the nice things about our last visit at Sony, when we went out to Kyoto to visit their team, and we saw the third in the series, and he presented us with literally like a slide of like cards with just images on them, you know, 2D. I mean, just there it is. And there was an image of racers, and there was an image of monsters, and there was this other image of the third and the fourth and the fifth. There's something that's so wonderful about Dylan and his team. It's they lock onto like a visual or sound or some sort of mechanic, and then they are free to explore it and prototype it.
On our internal BBS, you know, at our company, we have like a whole forum full of ideas, you know, and the sketches and all these little ideas, and it's really interesting to try and work out which one to do next, which one is going to be the best. We're fairly strict with ourselves, you know. We'll say, well, we're not going to do this, and we'll cut it, and we'll try and make sure we keep the quality and the ideas as rich as possible. You know, once we finish the first series, it'd be great to release all the sketches we had and all the ideas, you know.
Yeah, exactly.
But we definitely plan to make. I mean, I hope to at least make about 6 titles in the first series.
What would you guys be doing if there wasn't a digital distribution channel for you?
Probably making bigger titles, like maybe, you know, for the Wii or for the PS3 or something. If I was going to make a game for the PS3, then I want to make a really good quality game. Then for that kind of price, if people are going to pay $60 or whatever, then I think that you need to then have this team, which is, you know, 40 people, 50 people, and a
giant budget.
And I just don't really want to go down that route, you know. So I think the timing is just about perfect. You know? We're just in the right place at the right time, and everything is slotted into place. Racers and monsters, you know, made in 6 to 7 months or so each, and it's just great just to be able to get your ideas in there, get the game made, and then see it on the store, you know, within the same year. You know, and there aren't many people who can say that.
You know, we were kind of like, well, when can we see the third? When can we see the third? And we saw it, and it's just like we're still figuring out and finessing the gameplay, but we know we're onto something here. It's really refreshing.
And then we didn't show them anything for months. And then a couple of weeks ago we gave them a build. And now they're all playing that now.
And I was hammering out. I was like, Dylan, when are we going to see it? When are we going to see it? I have to kick this all the way up the chain and make sure everybody sees it. So, you know, when do we get to see it?
And my whole plan was, you know, to get the game in a state that was viewable for GDC. It was all very last minute. You know, we were all rushing all bits into place, and finally got the video into place. But you know, some people certainly didn't quite see it in time, so we got a bit told off on that. But But I think
It's fine. It's fine.
Yeah.
Scratch that. Cut that out.
Yeah.
Just a little background. That game company, that's not a cheeky thing. That is actually the name of the company.
Yeah.
Yes.
What exactly have you done?
Well, Genova and I were at USC Interactive Media Program together, where we worked on the student project Cloud, and then that led us to form That Game Company, and our first project was taking his thesis project Flow and putting it on PlayStation Network.
How did the PlayStation Network thing come about, actually? Because that seems a pretty big step. Was that a goal all along, or did it just sort of happen?
At the same time that year, Cloud was in the IGF, in the student showcase of 2006 was when, was right before Sony was going to announce their PlayStation Network and Anywhere, and Xbox Live Arcade had just been out for a year, so it was sort of this opportunity that publishers were actually looking to fund more of the small games and experimental games and looking for content. So a part of it was timing.
So we were just really lucky, you know.
Yeah.
Like, there are so many other students and indie game makers who works really hard. You know, they definitely deserve, you know, similar opportunities, but we were just like happened to be the right time.
Do you think that that game company would exist without something like the PlayStation Network, or that indie development would take off the way that it has without the PlayStation Store, without Xbox Live Arcade, without Steam? There are inroads into audiences that may be really difficult for you to go out and get yourselves, you know, as that game company.
It's well, you can.
Well, I was just going to say I was trying to get inspiration for a speech at a previous conference, actually, and so I was going through some of the old GDC conference audio, and it was 2005, the Game Developers Rant, the Burn Baby Burn, and the focus of most of the speakers, if not all, was on the problems of these large budget games and how just the base costs of making hard disk media had gotten to a point where you had to put so much investment in that you had to get a monetary reward from it, and so the content had to be safe, and it was really interesting hearing that just 2005, and 2006 is when we came to Sony. 2007 we have Flow out, so it's just totally in 2 years it's just really changed. It definitely has changed the face of games, and it's hopefully bringing in a lot of people who didn't.
For the better.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah, like what I'm gonna say next is not from my perspective, because I'm going to see Eric Zimmerman. He's the CEO of Game Lab. Bigger budget, because the target audience is set. How can you compete with each other? You have to just throw more money into it.
I see.
So the business kind of grow based on, am I throwing more money, more budget? Is this game more impressive than the other one? Though the game is almost identical. If you look at all the high budget games right now.
It seems like the genres, until the growth of the independent games, we have really pigeonholed games into that kind of cycle.
So, I mean, this kind of similar thing happened to the movie industry about maybe 30 or 40 years ago. There's a similar indie movement. That's when the camera, or just like how much it costs to make a movie, becomes cheap enough because the technology has evolved. So as the downloadable content. Now consoles can distribute things through the internet. Suddenly the cost is much lower.
Cutting off the shipping and the advertising, and that seems to happen with every media. I saw a really good comic. I don't know if you saw this one. I think Simon linked to it. It was the one where it had like a independent comics publisher, and they're like, "Oh God, we sold 3,000," and independent album maker, we sold 3,000," and then independent games makers, we only sold 300,000. We're ruined. And it's the point where you can actually sell 300,000 and do really well for yourself, hopefully.
Our game is very different, and the publisher has, is willing to take the risk because the budget is really small. If this is, at the beginning we were pitching the cloud game to most of the publishers, and we were asking like, tens, millions dollars, right? And who would give money to us? We just graduated from the school. I mean, we were just kind of like,
well, they might
we don't
now.
know anything, and we were just like talking to them. But now as we start developing the game, we realize how just risky each project is. I'm just glad that now it's actually possible for a small team like Flow is like 5-6 people, and now we have 8 to work on a game. I mean, compare with the 200 people team,
right?
And I just think this is really great time for other designers, students who wants to try out their ideas.
Yeah,
there's more opportunity now.
Definitely.
During the school, we made several student projects. The very early one, the dieting game. I don't know if you guys even know this.
No, I don't.
It was in the IGF Student Showcase on 2005. Yeah. And then the next year, the cloud game. And then the next year, there's the Flow. So we were like, by making cloud and then Flow, we have a vision that the game could go towards this direction. There's this unexplored market there. This group of gamers who's waiting for certain type of game, but nobody's making them. We also need to have the games that can satisfy people who just want to relax. People who wants to feel intellectual adventure. Who wants to learn things. And by then, everybody will be able to find a game that they want to play. Because right now, if you say, is movie a mature entertainment medium, everybody will say yes, because everybody have their own movies that they like. I hate horror movies, I hate action movies, but I like certain movies, right? But if you go to my friend and say, well, do you like video games? She will say, no, not really, because I don't have any games that I actually play. So we just feel it's very important to expand the spectrum of video games so everybody can enjoy it, and
sort of expand the art form as a whole and sort of open the doors for other people to follow.
Exactly. So when we are graduating, I was thinking, okay, yeah, I can probably just go to work for big studios like EA or other companies, so we can just design games like that.
Right, the usual path.
Yeah. But after I was actually working on Spore for a while. I just realized Spore is gonna take a while to make. And I really want to just put my hands on doing something that actually move towards the direction I want to see. Like gaming is all about you have a very clear goal, and then every action you do, you get a clear feedback that you will become addicted to perform the action. So is my work. Like I want the video game to expand. So at the end, Kelly and I was trying to start a company which can actually do it, because we can't find any other company which are making the games that we are aware of.
So something you were talking about, though, about video games not having the emotional range of movies, because I know a lot of people that just think every video game is a shooter.
Right.
It engenders excitement or occasionally fear,
and that's all
or
you
a
have.
rage in my case happens. You guys seem to do a lot of relaxing games. Is it hard to make a game that's relaxing and not boring? And is that like your emotional focus? Is that are you going to continue?
So, like I mentioned before, the goal is to expand it. Wherever it needs, we will go towards that direction. I mean, right now, most games are focusing on action, the stimulation, the excitement, right? So what's the opposite? What's the area that needs the most? And that's why cloud is about relaxing and meditation. Flow is almost kind of like a Zen experience, but we never just want to say, oh, we are those people who only make relaxing games, because
Are you worried about getting pigeonholed there? Or?
Yeah, that's because if we create a niche and we just kind of make money out of this small niche, I mean, as a company, we might just be benefiting from this small group of players, but for the industry, it's not really healthy. I mean, what we want is to bring everybody to make them aware, hey, there's actually a group of gamers here that they are looking for different kind of emotional games, and we should all make games. Then this niche can become a big genre, right? And then expand more. So if we end up becoming a niche, I think we failed.
Well, and I think that's kind of the purview of an artist in general, no matter what medium you're talking about, is to look at the areas that haven't been explored and to purposefully explore them,
right.
Like you're doing.
So back to your question about how making a relaxing game might become boring. We are definitely aware of it.
Right.
So I think a lot of times when the players tell us the game is boring, because we did a lot of playtests during Flow, it's because their expectation.
Yes, the preconception of so why can't I shoot this fish?
Right. If we get someone who has no experience in Flow, they spend tons of time just at the beginning, which it's totally boring to watch. There are so many different types of gamers, especially when we release Cloud. There's so many 30, 40 years old who never play games, just try to play our game.
So when you do playtesting, you bring in a lot of non-gamers then, otherwise they'll come to it with the wrong idea.
The game has a different emotion. That means there are people who might not be into games who will be interested in this kind of experience.
Do you find any other areas in which gaming as an art form is lacking that you'd want to target in the future? Because you're targeting certain things with Flow, you're targeting certain things with Flower. Are there any other areas where you think that the industry needs to expand?
I mean, there's so much. It's as if you walk into a bookstore and you just have shelves with all these different sections of kinds of books and places you can go. And video games, it feels right now, has just filled up 1 or 2 shelves, and so there's a whole rest of the floor we have to play with. And I think we're trying to do focused experiments, and as Genova was saying, we've hit on this emotion with Cloud and exploring it with Flow, and sort of trying to massage it out.
Right.
And hopefully bring in new players and new audiences who will then also want different experiences.
Flow is, in a lot of aspects, it's a very classic game. I wouldn't even say the gameplay is innovative, but I think the emotions and the dynamical difficulty is kind of different. Cloud, as a student game, when we created, the response from the media is like, this game is so strange. There's no goal, there's no enemies, but people liked it. That's kind of it's probably the first positive feedback towards me as a designer. Actually, you can make something that doesn't have conflict.
Right.
It's hard to say conflict because conflict is so.
It's a very broad term.
Obstacles, at least.
Yeah, our next game, Flower, I think it definitely is more experimental and unconventional compared with Flow, and we will see how the gamer is gonna react to that.
Yeah, definitely.
What is zeroing in on the emotional spectrum with that one?
Well, so when we talk about emotional spectrum, the first question people usually ask, so what kind of emotion are you going to make?
I'm sure
it's like you ask a movie director, so what are you trying to say from this movie? Yes, I can tell you, but I think usually if I said it, if the player knows it and then they play it, they will have a different expectation, and usually it wouldn't work. I would rather keep my mouth shut for now.
Fair enough.
And let you guys to tell me what you feel from the game.